The opinions expressed are those of the host. The material is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and it is not intended as an endorsement for any specific investment. Visit crestmontpw.com for more details.
Welcome to the Ascent, brought to you by Crestmont Private Wealth. This is Sam McGee. We have an office at One River Way in Houston, Texas, and 604 South Main in Boerne, Texas. Today, I have a very special guest. This is such a fun God-wink little interview here. Yes. I've got Baron Wiley. He owns Boerne Radio. So I podcast with him every single week. Well, really with him and Lexi. And every single week, we're talking about different subjects. And then they shoot out to iHeartRadio and Spotify and Google Podcasts and all those things. But he's the guy behind the scenes. Very active in the community. You see him everywhere. He runs all sorts of neat stuff. And about a week and a half ago, we were sitting outside the studio and just having a coffee and talking. And we were just sharing our stories about business and kind of what we went through during the pandemic. And just found that we had so much in common, right?
Yeah.
Incredible. And so today is my gift to you, Baron.
Oh.
It is for you to share your story. I think it's so neat, and I think it will resonate with those that listen to Boerne Radio to know more about you and your family's journey with Boerne Radio, how you got here. And also for our listeners on the Ascent, those of you that are considering starting a business or maybe in the middle of business that can relate to this. So, Baron, please take us back to the beginning. I mean, it is so incredible. What were you doing in San Antonio, and walk our listeners through that?
Well, before I get into that, let me just say that I'm a fan of you and your family. Your family blessed me, starting with little Sam, your son, when he walked up to me and says, I love Boerne Radio. I listen all the time on the way to school or whatever. My dad, da.
He's a trip.
Yeah, he's just so enthusiastic. So I'm a big fan, and I love watching him grow up and become a man of God just like you, my friend. So
thank you. Thank you very much.
So I have never been a business owner in my life. I've always been working for the man, working for corporate, and was working for a big station. Worked for the Salem Media Group, and very proudly so, 17 years. I started off there with my friend Sonny Melendrez. I mean, going way back 30 years ago is when I first started in radio, but the last big gig was 17 years with me and Sonny in the morning, doing the morning show, and I was doing sales in the afternoon. I became the operations manager, and then the program director, and the sales manager, the director of sales over 4 stations. And man, I'm a heartbeat away from being the general manager of that station group. And then a gentleman from Boerne says, hey man, I'm going to start a nonprofit, and I want you to run the media department. And you only have to worry about one thing instead of 150 clients, and you'll make the same money.
Wow.
And I go, okay, I just turned 50. And I'm thinking, let's shake it up. Let's jump out of the boat. I went to my boss and I said, I've got this opportunity. He goes, you might not want to do that. I'm about to retire. And I go, Mike, you've been saying that for 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the jump.
Yep.
So I jumped and came to Boerne. We were blowing and going, created a podcast and a radio show, got it placed on this thing called Boerne Radio. Didn't know it existed when I Googled Hill Country radio stations. And the guy that answered the phone used to be my engineer in San Antonio, who I thought had retired. And I go, I thought you retired. And he goes, I did. And I got bored, and I saw that this Boerne radio station was available, and so I land grabbed it. He was running it from his laptop in Garden Ridge. So I said, I got this show. And he goes, let's put it on. So we put it on, and we're going. And then guess what happens in 2020? You remember.
Oh, yeah. Great times.
COVID. And it killed us.
Mm.
And so all of a sudden, I'm in Boerne unemployed.
Yep. Wow.
And I can't go back to Egypt.
Yep.
And so I got to call my friend George, and I go, George, I got to cancel the radio show. And he goes, great. I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, will you run the station for me now? And I said, well, and it was like divine providence just came, the words came out. And I said, well, I'll run it for you for a year, only if you let me buy it from you when you're done.
Oh, wow. Was this like a kind of a back of the envelope kind of deal?
Dude, this whole thing.
Or a napkin?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
It's kind of like the Southwest Airlines story, really. It's cool.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Again, to your point, this is a God story that's still being written. We're just getting started here with this thing called Boerne Radio. But the journey from then to now has just been surreal. I had drama this morning of like, God, how are you going to help me fix this one?
Yeah.
You know, when you own a business, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So get this. This is one of the major punchlines of this whole story, in that I ran the station for a year. And by the way, the station was costing George $4,000 a month to run, leasing the tower and other expenses. And the station was making $4,000.
Oh, wow.
It's break even. And here I am. Okay, I'll run it. And that was in October of 2020. And then by December, I was still trying to figure out how to run a station. And by that December, I did my first Christmas promotion, and the station made $12,000 with operating at 4.
Wow.
Yeah, so okay.
Hey, you're like, hey, this could actually
This
work.
So after a year, I figured out it was going to work. And so I said, all right, George, I'd like to buy the station from you. So I borrowed the money from a wonderful friend investor there, set the date up for the lawyer's office to show up and slide that check across the table to George and his wife. And the station was under her name, so she had to sign it legally. And Sam McGee, 2 weeks before we bought the station, my friend George passes away.
Oh, my goodness.
He woke up, got dizzy, hit his head on the way down, and passed away.
2 weeks before closing.
Correct. So now,
after going through COVID.
correct.
Wow.
And so now I'm in the lawyer's office, sliding the check across to the widow who doesn't know anything about radio. And George died with all the passwords and knew where the bodies were buried because he told me. He's like, Baron, we got a few issues with the station, but we'll fix them together. Love what you're doing. Well, but the Lord just said, go. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are today, and we're still going. Still got some problems.
I would venture to say that 99% of our Boerne Radio listeners do not know this story.
Correct.
Unbelievable. And that's why I wanted to do this today, because as you and I were sitting there, I had goosebumps sitting there in this alley underneath the Richter, just talking about our respective stories. One day we'll go back, you'll interview me on mine, but incredible. And the story gets better. So take our listeners from there. You're passing the check over to the widow, you know, it happens. And then take us on to that Tusculum event. I thought that was so cool.
Oh, my. Well, there's a few of it.
Yes.
I got
Please.
God stories like crazy here. Pressing forward, man. So if you remember May of that same year, here we are. Oh, by the way, this is how the Lord provided again. My engineer and my IT guy just died, and I just bought a station. So if the station went down tomorrow, I'm dead in the water.
Yeah.
I got nobody.
Yeah.
So just real quick, I remember I was leaving River City Community Church where I was recording a podcast and radio show for my friend Pastor Sean, who's on 2 stations in San Antonio and on Boerne Radio. And my phone rings and it says Boerne Radio listener. And so I answer the phone and the guy goes, hey man, I love the station. I love what you're doing with it. And I go, well, thank you. Who are you? And he goes, oh, my name's Gary. And matter of fact, I used to be the engineer for Boerne Radio. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah, we were trying to do the things that you're doing and we couldn't figure it out and you're doing it. And I just want to tell you, I just think it's fantastic. And I go, well, I'm in the market for an engineer. And he goes, well, I'm 75 years old. I can't climb towers anymore here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just keep me legal. How much do you need? And he goes, well, I'm on Social Security. Can you do it for $500 a month? And I go, when can you start?
Yeah. How about yesterday? Thanks.
Exactly. And so the Lord provided him and an IT guy just out of the blue. It's like I didn't ask for it. The Lord just delivered it, hand delivered it.
Gosh, I mean, I spent a little bit of time talking about faith on our show, but this is one of those, if you don't believe in God, oh my gosh, I mean, look around. I mean, what a miracle that is, right?
Well, then an act of God happened. This is where I go, God? An act of God happened when a bolt of lightning hits the tower. It's the famous Boerne Radio tower story. Zot. Coax, antenna, done.
Everything melted.
Everything's fried.
Yeah, 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what a lightning bolt is.
Wow. So I'm off the air. I wake up and we're off. And so I drive up to the tower site and I go, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not that guy. I'm good at 90% of radio. That's the one thing I'm not strong at. I'm a button pusher.
Can't be an expert in everything.
Correct. And then my phone rings. I answer the phone, and the guy who's on the line says, hey, man, what's going on? That's my impression of Justin McClure, who owns Jam Broadcasting in Kerrville, who I've met once. And where did I meet him? I met him at George's funeral.
Oh, my gosh.
And he goes, hey, man, what's going on? And I said, dude, I don't know. And he goes, well, what do your readings say? I don't speak readings. I don't know how to whatever.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, what do you need? I don't know. I was thinking, what's he going to do? And he goes, I'll be right down. And that guy got into his truck and drove down and brought a spare transmitter and boom, got me back up on the air.
Okay, that right there is unreal. So someone you've met in your industry, technically a competitor.
Correct.
Who lives in Kerrville.
Correct.
Who says, you know what? I'm going to come help you out and gets you back on the air. Unbelievable.
So I asked him, just why are you doing this? And he goes, oh, man, you know what? George helped me get my station on the air. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be on the air. So, dude, we got to have each other's backs. And we've had each other's backs this whole time. And then 2 weeks later, I don't know if you remember that big May storm we had. It was like 2 weeks in a row. Kaboom. We get zapped again.
Oh, my gosh.
And Justin calls me and he goes, what do you need? I go, I don't know.
Wait a minute. Let's back up. Lightning struck twice, same place.
Yeah, that happens, right?
Yeah, it does. Well, but it happened to you.
Correct.
That's unbelievable.
And so he comes down again, and like MacGyver, dude pulls up a scrap piece of pole off the ground and some coax and sticks it on the roof and gets me back on 30 minutes before the Boerne High School baseball playoff game.
Incredible.
Totally incredible. That guy. But, man, we're operating at half power. And so, guess what? The city of Boerne, God bless America. God bless Boerne. I'm going to get choked up just thinking about it, dude.
That's all right.
Here we go. Hey, Baron, we're going to hold a fundraiser for because it was $5,000 a climb. Nothing's less than $5,000.
Well, this is COVID times, too.
Correct. Yeah. So they said, Baron, we're going to hold a fundraiser for you because this was not in the budget. Dude didn't have insurance. You know, there's a business lesson for you.
Yep.
And we're going to hold a fundraiser for you at the Tusculum. You don't even have to come because it's going to happen without you. Of course we came. And 200 people, Boerne Radio listeners and friends, and we're still new, show up to this thing, and they just rallied, and so help me, paid for most of that need.
Incredible.
Totally incredible. And then, by the way, did they say, Baron, come on up here and thank everybody? No. You sit there, mind your business. We'll take care of this. Here you go. God bless you. Don't stop what you're doing.
You've illustrated a couple things here. I mean, we've talked about love thy neighbor. We've talked about wisdom. You know, wisdom is going through hard things and adapting. I mean, that's actually one of Crestmont's core values is the ability to adapt. And, you know, when you're a business owner, you know, there's a lot of times that you're learning things for the very first time and new things, and you're discovering how to pivot and adapt as you grow your business. But goodness gracious, I think our stories, your story, is probably not uncommon to other business owners in this community. Just seeing the outpour of love and support that happened. You know, you heard about it at the chamber, you know, what they did and how other chamber members came forward and helped out in the community. And this, you know, listeners in Harris County, I'm sure very similar situation out in Houston and surrounding areas, and listeners all across the U.S. that are listening to this. I don't think this is an uncommon story. But pretty neat to see how community really came in action. And we're thankful for that because here we are sitting here in Boerne Radio's studio.
Amen.
Below the Richter. Beautiful little outfit. You got Star Wars figurines all over the place. I mean, if
my wife says I need all this out of my house.
Oh, if you ever want to get on Baron's good side, bring him some sort of Star Wars stuff, right? He's a big collector. You know, here we are, and we're past the pandemic. But this story needed to be told because the untold stories are the richness of business. They really are. And it's also good wisdom for those that are out there that are considering starting a business. Hey, you can build your own business plan, but there's no contingency for lightning strike. You know, there's no contingency for what you may need to do. You got to be prepared. You got to be ready. You got to have ability to adapt. Baron, tell us a little bit about what your favorite part of being a part of this community is.
Well, so much. I'm living the dream just to be in Boerne. You find out how special this place is. It's the real people who tell you how much they appreciate what's coming out of the speakers. I love a couple of them. One lady called me up and she says, I'm 71 years old and my husband's in hospice right now. And you just played our song.
Oh, wow.
And I just want to thank you because, and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, Oh, What a Night by Frankie Valli. Now I'm crying in my chair for this one little call. And then I also love the multiple generation factor that's happening because of Boerne Radio. I've got a grandfather who thanked me that I played a Johnny Cash song next to a U2 song that U2 did with Johnny Cash. And he goes, and now I've got something in common with my grandson. And so we talk about music now, thanks to your station.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's very cool. And I'm looking over here on this back of this on-air thing that sits up on the chair here that lights up, and it says, to Dad from Olivia and Vanessa.
Yeah.
So do they listen to the radio?
They're on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Olivia, she writes my news, and she also performs the community calendar, so that's Olivia Wiley.
Okay.
And then Vanessa, she's a music nerd herself, and so she's a contributor. She's my assistant music director.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
So on the family topic, I went to a Boerne mixer recently. So very unique. If you're listening in Harris County, you're a chamber member there, and you want to, come up with a great idea. I think it's really neat. So they do this Boost Boerne business. Yeah. So if you bring a $50 gift card, you can talk about your business for like 30 seconds a minute, something like that.
Yep.
And Just a neat deal. And I walk in, and your wife's at the front table.
Yep.
And, she's talking about what's going on with Boerne Radio and what's going on in the community. And so you guys work on the station together, and talk a little bit about that.
Again, another God story. If I had to ask you, what are the 5 most stressful things in life? The usual answers are death,
Moving.
children, moving, illness,
Yeah.
and just stress, right?
Life events, which Crestmont Private Wealth is there for our clients on, by the way.
Well, all in 1 week. My wife's brother died. She got COVID. She lost her job. Our kids went to college, so empty nesters. And then we moved to Boerne that same week, too. Anyway.
So you didn't rip off a Band-Aid. You covered yourself in athletic tape and ripped it all off at once.
Correct. Yeah. She's got the scars to prove it. And so after she kind of healed from that, she says, all right, well, I'm all in on Boerne Radio. So she took over, the books behind the scenes. But then when we started developing Boost Boerne Business and more events, that's her baby. And she does an incredible job of that.
She does.
I love my wife. We're equally yoked. It's a beautiful thing. And again, living the dream. Thanks for asking, man.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so
That's special.
Those of you that listen to The Ascent, you can go to our webpage, www.crestmontpw.com, and we have something in common, Baron. Our tagline is a business built for families by families.
Yeah.
Very similar. I love that. Absolutely love it. You breathe Boerne.
Thank you.
You're a blessing to the Boerne community, and I feel so incredibly grateful that you took me up on this opportunity to interview you. I hope that you listen to this in 10 years. I hope you share this with a guy out in Kerrville that helped you out. I hope you share this with a widow of George. I love this story.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing a lot more in the Boerne community with Boerne Radio.
The story's still being written. There's plenty to talk about, Sam. Keep up your great storytelling, sir.
I hope everyone has a great weekend, and God bless.